Hi everyone and welcome back to Crochet Rocks. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this rainbow blanket. It's a baby blanket that I'm making for someone who's just about ready to have the baby, so it's kind of stopped me making my bag tutorial for you at the moment, but I'll get onto that as soon as. But I'm going to show you how to do this. A lot of people have expressed a wish that I do the tutorial, so I'm not quite finished with this blanket yet, but by the end of the tutorial I will be. So I'm using some rainbow yarn that I got quite some time ago from Aldi. They did a pack. There's a blue one somewhere under here. There it is. It's a very pale blue, but yeah, I'm using these rainbow shades that I got in the pack from Aldi. And I'm using some Robin White baby yarn, which that's not the baby yarn, but this one, because I've already started on it. This is that's called Bonny Baby DK, and I've got 3 of these. I always use 3 on a blanket, just to make sure I've got enough. And I did think that I might edge it with this because it's already got all those colours in it, and I bought this recently as well. This is the Robin Paintbox, and I just thought it would edge it quite nicely because all of the colours that I'm doing in this blanket are here. So just bear with me 1 second while I get this lot out of the way, and I'll show you how we do this blanket. Okay, so the weight of yarn that I'm using for this is DK because that's what I predominantly had the most of, and that's what the rainbow pack from Aldi was. DK is readily available over here in the UK. If you want to get a good 4 weight, a good Aran, you really got to buy it online if you want good colours. So I'm going to make this in DK. I'm going to sort of explain this as if you're a beginner, but it is quite an intricate pattern, so I will take the time to explain. You're going to need a darning needle. That's an essential because this changes colour every row, so there are a lot of ends unfortunately to tie in, or sew in should I say, and a pair of scissors. So I'm going to show you how to make a start, and I've got it written down in my little book just in case I forget how many chain to tell you. So I'm just going to look that up because my memory is like a sieve and I've just got to find the page. I think I would have found that before, wouldn't you? Where is it? Bear with me. Here we are. Yeah, I've called it the Rainbow Rocks blanket or baby blanket, and it takes a foundation chain of 98. So if you wanted to make this larger or smaller or into a scarf or anything else, I've found that this is multiples of 4 plus 6. So that's how you judge your size. But if you're making this in 4 weight or an Aran yarn in the UK, then obviously it will come up bigger anyway. But it is quite a nice size blanket, it's not small. I also thought what might be nice, I'm just going to pop that there so that I can refer to it. What might be nice when you're making this, I'll get it back over, is if the colours were sort of ombre. So you kind of count really how many rows you would need, perhaps in, I'd say, a dark yellow, maybe 5, and then you kind of change it to one that's lighter, change it to one that's lighter. I thought that might look really, really effective as well. So that was just one thought I had. And plus, when I'm making it, I do a V-stitch at one point and a solid granny stitch at the next round. You could just make completely V-stitch on your coloured rows. That would make it slightly different as well. So I'm just going to pull out some yarn and get started on my 98 chain, which does sound like a lot, doesn't it? So I'm going to make a slip knot, which you can do in any way you wish, and just yarn over and pull through for a chain. And we want 98, so it's yarn over and pull through. That makes a chain. So I've got 5 now. So I'm going to pause this while I get my 98 chain. You don't want them tight, but equally you don't want them like loose either, because you need to get your stitches into them. So I'm going to pause the video while we make our 98 chain. Okay, so I have 98 chain, and what I'm going to do, the first row, my foundation row, is going to be what we call in the UK a double crochet. So for those in the US, that is a single crochet. So we're going into the second chain from the hook. This loop doesn't count. There's our first, and this one here is our second. So we're just going to insert our hook into that chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. So we have 2 on our hook, yarn over and pull through both. Now that we're going to do all the way along. So we're going to go into the next chain, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both. And that's as simple as that, all the way to the end. So it's just a very simple stitch, and that is what the UK term is a double crochet, but in the US that's a single crochet. So I want you to carry on and do that in every stitch, every chain until the end. So you just insert your hook, yarn over, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through them both. So I'm going to pause the video and I will catch up with you at the end of this row when you've got all of your stitches. Okay, so I'm almost right at the end. I've just got 2 more to do, so I'm just going to go in there and complete my last 2. So this one here is the knot, we don't go into there, so we're just going to go in the last one. So now we've got our row of our double crochets or single crochet. So now at the end of this row we're going to chain 2, and that gets me up to the height of a UK treble crochet, which in the US is your double crochet. Now some tutorials will tell you to do 3 chain, but I always find that is too much and I get like a little bulge. This will bow out at the sides, and we don't really need that. So this is going to count as our first stitch here. So we're not going to go into this stitch because this is our first, and we're going to go into this one here and we're going to do a treble crochet, and that's the UK treble or the US double. So we're yarning over and we're going to go into that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So now that counts as our first 2 treble crochet, and we're going to chain 1. Now we're going to skip 3, so we're going to count them. It's hard to do that. 1, 2, 3. We're going to go into this 4th one and we're going to yarn over and go into that stitch and do our same stitch as before, the treble crochet UK or double in the US, and we're going to do 3 in that one stitch, which is the standard granny stitch really. So we're going to do 3 in there, chain 1. Now we're going to skip 3, go into the next stitch and do another 3, and we're going to repeat that all the way along until we've just got a couple of stitches remaining. So we're going to do our 3, 1 chain before it, 1 chain after it, skip 3, go into the 4th one, and that's our repeat. We're just going to carry on and repeat that all the way to the end. So I'm going to pause the video and I will catch up with you once you have your row of these grannies, and you will have a couple of stitches, 2 or 3 stitches remaining at the end, and I'll show you what to do when we get there. Okay, so I'm on my last set of 3. Do my chain as usual. So now we've got these stitches remaining, and as we started with our 2, just our 2, like they were our beginning chain, and this was, sorry, I'm zoomed, I'll unzoom. Because we started with 2, where we've got our beginning chain and our first, we now need 2 at this end. So in our second to last stitch, we're just going to do 1 UK treble, and in our last stitch we're going to do another, and we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Okay, I'm just going to get a drink, won't be a moment. That's better. So now we're going to take our first colour. Might be zoomed in a bit more there, hang on, that's it. Take our first colour and find the end, usually poking through the end. And I'm going to show you how we get onto our next row. Now this looks a little tricky, but it's really not. So for our first part of this row, we're going to carry on in white, and we're going to do 1 UK double crochet, remember that's a single in the US, in the first stitch, and 1 in this second, but we're not going to finish it. We're going to hold on to that yarn at the back, and we're going to change colour. And we're going to change colour by and I'm going to leave a nice long tail, because this, as I say, is a bit of a nightmare when it comes to ends and tails. So I'm going to just tie that off at the back. Just get my yarn and just tie it into like a little, not pulling it tight because it distorts the stitches, but I'm just going to tie it because that will give it a little bit more security before I sew those ends in. And then I'm going to get rid of this white yarn, leave a nice long tail, just cut it off and discard that. Okay, so now we're going to carry on in. Now I recommend as well that after a couple of rows you sew your ends in, because honestly there's rather a lot, because you change colour at the end of every row and you can't really carry the yarn with you, so you do need to sew them in, and you don't want them all at the end because it's a bit of a nightmare. So really do it as you go. So now we're going to do 1 chain, and we're going to work over these stitches and into the space between. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into this 1 stitch in between here. We're going to yarn over, go over these stitches, insert into there, yarn over and pull up. So we're doing our normal just UK treble or US double, but going over that stitch. It's perfectly okay, don't worry about that. We're going to do 1 chain and we're going to do another one in there. So we've made a V stitch. 1 more chain. You can see you've got a V stitch over the top of that where you've got the chain space. So now we're going to just leapfrog over to this one, and in the centre we've got our 3 that we skipped. 1, 2, 3. We're going to go into the centre one. So we're just going to yarn over, go into that centre one, going over that. I can go into 2 loops. Hang on, move that out the way, it's confusing. So we're going into 2 loops, yarn over and pull up our loop. So we've got 3 on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, 1 chain, and go back in there and do another. I might have split that stitch a little bit, don't worry about that. 1 chain. So just like before, we've got a chain before and a chain after, and in the next row we're going to be working over this. So we're kind of going, I'm going to do that again and not split the yarn because that doesn't look nice. Not that you would notice it really, but I am noticing it. So that's it. Just going to do that V again. Just sing amongst yourselves while I do that. Put that right. Perfectionist. So there we are. We're working over the top of that previous row, going over here and in that space between. So again, here's our 3 stitches that we skipped, and we're going into this centre one. So there's 1, 2, 3, yarn over. Try not to make it too baggy so that when you pull up, you've just got your 3 stitches. You can do that by pulling on this, so it's a normal size. So we're going to do our 1 stitch, our 1 chain, and back in there for the second stitch. So we're making V's in between, and we're doing another chain, and we're going to do our V in between these, and we're just going to carry on doing that all the way to the end in between these well, I don't call them shells, clusters I'll call them, because technically a shell is larger. But you're just going in between them, and that's what it looks like on the other side. And I'm going to pause the video then. Don't forget to do a chain before and after the V-stitch. Do one more V for you. Pull it so it's got the right tension. One chain, back in the same stitch, and do the second one, and one chain. So we're creating this part here where we've got to go over in the next round. So I'm going to pause the video and I will catch up with you when I get to the end, and I'll show you what we do at the end of this row. Okay, so I've gone all the way along, and now I'm in my last hole, if you like, before I get to the end. So I've done half of my V, my one chain, and my second half, and I don't complete it, I just go through two, so I've left two loops on my hook. So this is so that we can change back to the white yarn. So I'm going to leave a nice generous tail for the sewing in. Just let me get this yellow out of the way, because I don't want it to start tangling. It's got to wind a little bit back on. A bit more than I thought, must have pulled out quite a bit. So then we grab the white again, and we're going to change, and this is why there's so many ends, but it's pretty. So and you can't, as I say, carry it because you start at opposite ends. So leaving a nice long tail and holding on to this one so that it doesn't become baggy or loose, we finish that stitch with the white. See that? So we've just finished that. Turn it over and we tie these off. That just gives us more security for the ends once we sew them in as well. So now we're going to finish this in our white. So this gives us the white border all the way around. So I'm going to do one chain because I've not done my chain after this V, and in my last two stitches I'm going to do, did I show you that? We're going to do our double crochet. So we yarn over and we just do our UK double, which obviously is a single crochet in the US. Now I like to go into that first chain, it doesn't make any difference. So we're going to do two chain because now we're on our white row. We're doing we're going to be doing those again, so those treble crochets. So we're going into this stitch here, so we've got our two treble crochets at the start. So basically on the yellow rows, our whites are our double crochet, which is a single in the US. On our white rows we're going into these and we're doing our treble, so that's what's keeping our height, because this is, if you like, halfway through the two rows. This is one row, this is our second row of whites, but this is halfway because we've gone down back to it and it's slightly above. So now we are just going to do our one chain before, and remember, one chain before our little cluster, one after, and then we're going to go into the third of our row here, and we're going to work over this yellow, and we're going to just go into that stitch so it's hiding that little piece in the middle, and we're going to do our three just like we did before on our white row. We're going to do our three treble crochets. So we've gone over that, and so all you'll see are these V stitches between. So we do our one chain and we're going to do three in the center of our cluster below, working over that yellow. One chain, find the next one, find the center, and do our little cluster, just our standard granny stitch cluster. And so we're doing three and one chain, and basically that is every single white row will be the same. And we're going to find our center of our three, and do our cluster into there, and 1 chain, and that's what it looks like. So we're just working over, every row works over the one below. So now we've got, this is where we did our chain, so we're going to go beneath it, straight over it, and do our 3. And we're going to do that all the way to the end. Oops, didn't go yarn over with our 3s. And we're going to make sure our tension is just right when we come to do the stitch. There we go, pull some yarn out. Let's move that over there so it's easier to see. It's only really on the first one. So if you pull up, look how far apart that is. So I just tend to like make it so that it's just by pulling on this, making our stitches look normal. Otherwise you end up with a big buggy gap. You know, try and keep our tension nice. So that's basically it. We're going to go all the way along doing this right to the end. And I'm going to pause the video as before and catch up with you when we get to the end of the row. And then I will show you what to do next. And that's when I will discover if I told you right or not, because I can't remember if I told you to do a UK double in the end or a treble. And if I told you the treble, I'm going to give myself a slap. So just basically doing a chain before and a chain after, and our clusters of 3 over the yellow and in the center of the row below. So I'm going to pause it now and I will catch up with you at the end. Okay, so I'm on my last one. Just go into the center, do my last 3. My last chain. Now we're back here, and I did do it right, thank goodness for that. Sleep deprivation that is, and wasn't sure what I'd done. So in our last 2 stitches we are just going to do our treble crochet, so it keeps our edge nice and straight. So we're just going to each, oops a daisy, that one always gets tighter. It doesn't really need to force my way in. There we are. So we're just going to do our 2 at the end, and that will keep our blanket with a nice little, already nice little border. So we're going to change back to the yellow. You don't have to. You can do 1 row of colour and just do the next row in a different colour. You can do the next row in a V, or you can do what I'm doing. So now we're on our colour row. We're going to do a 1 chain, and our first stitch is our UK double crochet or US single, and in our second one we start it but we don't finish it, and we cut off a nice long tail and move the white out of the way. Now I'm going to get my yellow back. Let's get some, oops, get the end, get some yarn out. Leave a nice long tail as I said before. Now grab hold of this so it keeps these nice and tight, and finish that stitch in the yellow, turn it over, and we need to tie them off. Now see what I mean about all these ends. This is why at this stage I would now just, hang on a minute, I would just, it's kind of trying to fall off the table, which is very annoying. Get my end, which is here, and my white, not that one because that's the previous tail. This is why I will get rid of them, because it becomes very confusing as to what you've got and what you haven't got. So those are the 2 correct ones, just tying them off. Now I would normally just pause now and sew these in, but I just want to show you. So I'm going to move all my tails out of the way, and I'm going to do my first chain because I've done my 2, and now in with the pattern that I've done now, I did the next row, I didn't do V's, went straight into the center of my V, which is here, and did a treble crochet. So I'll show you, move these tails out of the way, it's very annoying. So just yarn over into the center of that V and pull up a loop, and do a treble crochet. Remember, that's the UK term, and I'm going to do 3 of them. Now of course, if you wanted to, you could just do, let's pulled a tail through, let's get rid of them. You could just do another V, and then you do your chain. So you've got a chain before and a chain after. This is what it would look like if you just did another V, which does look pretty, because it would just, you'd still go through there, but it would just be like a nice little loop all the way through. And I'm going to do something with that I like doing it that way a little bit later on. So now we're just going to carry on doing our, if you want to make it this way, doing our 3 through each of those big loops, and our chain before and our chain after, go into the center of this one all the way along. And my hook is squeaking because I'm hot. And that's what we're doing all the way along. We're just going to do 1 chain before, 1 chain after. And remember, because it's the coloured row, this is only a short stitch, and it writes itself. Don't worry about that step up, that's perfectly fine. It writes itself in the end. So we just carry on all the way along until we get to the end where we rejoin our white. So I'm going to pause the video and I will catch up with you once I've wiped this hook down and finished this row. Okay, so I've made it all the way along. Now for some reason this last one is always a little tighter. I don't know why. Something to do with the colour changing, I guess. So I'm going to carry on, and with my last yellow I'm only going to half complete because I'm going to change my yarn colour now. So with your ends, yours will probably look a little neater than mine, because I've been showing you and I've got this cumbersome equipment in the way. It's not as tight as it would normally be, so your ends will probably look a little neater than mine. So I'm going to change the yarn, and I'm going to have that problem with too many ends and tails. I'm just going to cut my yellow off, grab my white. I've got to move this yellow ball out of the way because it will just get confusing. I can discard it now because I've finished with yellow for a while. And pull out some more yarn. Now just remember, you don't have to change yarn colours at all. You can carry on in like making this a 2-colour. You can use a variegated rainbow. You can do bright colours, pastel colours, ombre, anything you want. It doesn't have to be the same. So I'm just going to hold on to that at the back so it doesn't make these loops larger. Whoops, finish my stitch, turn it over and tie these 2 off. And if I weren't doing this as a tutorial now, I'd be sewing these ends in. And you have to be very thorough with them because of the clusters. You don't really have a great deal of space to sew them into for a corresponding colour, if you know what I mean. So I've been crocheting some of these in as I go, but I just didn't want to get confusing. I just wanted to show you. So I'm going to do my chain. Now remember, on the coloured rows, our end of the row is a UK double, which is a US single end. So we go in that stitch, I go into this one because it's only half a row, so it doesn't make a great deal of difference. So I'm going to do 2 chains and turn, and ignoring all of this spaghetti ends, this row is exactly the same as it was before. With the second stitch is our treble crochet or double US, 1 chain, and we're now going into the center, over the top of this and into the center of our white cluster. And so we're going up in a way half a row each round. Each time we do a row, it's only half, and that way it's a less holey blanket, and therefore a little warmer. So there we go. That's every white row is exactly the same, and we just need to get rid of those, and that's how it will look. So you'll carry on to the end and you'll change colour in exactly the same way, either to the same or a different colour whatever colour you want. And that's the 2 rows that we just keep repeating. And all you have to remember is that on the coloured rows, our ending and our beginning are a double crochet in the UK or a single crochet in the US. And on the white rows, they are treble crochet in the UK or double crochets in the US. And we change our colours at the end of our rows by just going through the 2 loops. So we're just going to carry on all the way to the end as before and change our yarn. And I don't think you need to see me do any of that again, just to change to a different colour. And if you're in any way confused about any of these still, just go back and watch those rows again. So as I said to you before, I've done mine where I've done this V and then I've done the shell, if you like, or cluster. I kind of like that. But if you wanted to just do V's, that's perfectly fine. Or if you wanted to just do these clusters, equally just as fine. So just play with it, and you can make it pastel shades. You can do it the same as mine, or you can carry on making it in, you know, nice variegated rainbow yarn or different colour foundation, because obviously this is for a baby, so there's a lot of white in it. So I'm going to pause this now, and I'm going to catch up with you when we get to the finished blanket, and I'm going to show you what we do on our final row. Okay, so here we are. I've done my very last white row, so there's my last coloured row, and this is my last white row, and now we've got this part that we need to reconcile. So I'm just going to get out some yarn, and we're going to turn our work with 1 chain, and in these stitches here we're going to do our single crochet US or double in the UK in our first 2. Now I'm going to work in the centre of this last cluster and going over this white, and I'm going to do a half treble, which is a half double in the US. A half treble is a UK term. So I'm going to go down into this row here, into the centre of my stitch, and pull up a loop. So I've yarned over and I've gone in, pull up a loop, so I've got 3 on my hook as if I'm doing a normal treble, but I'm going to do a half treble by yarn over and pull through all 3. So it just anchors that, and then in the next couple of stitches we're going to do, or 3 stitches should I say, of our cluster, we're going to just do our double crochet in the UK or single US. And now I'm not going to do any chain or anything else. I'm just going to yarn over, go into the centre, pull up my loop. Now you might think I've got less stitches, less count, but it does work anyway, it's perfect. So we're going to do our 3 single crochets or double crochets UK. It's confusing when they're different names, isn't it? And all the way along, once we've done our 3, we yarn over, go into the centre, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, go through all 3. And then you can see that that just finishes our blanket nicely. And the stitches are a perfect amount. It's no problem with it being less stitches or puckered in any way. So we're just going to anchor those by working over the white, going into the centre. I didn't go through, yes I did, just didn't seem like it. And it straightens it off nicely because it's just enough of a taller stitch to make that nice and straight. And we're going to do that all the way to the end, so that anchors that row nicely. So I'm going to pause the video excuse me, and I'm going to do that all the way to the end, and I will meet up with you at the end of the row. Okay, so I'm almost back. I've just got to do my last half treble in there, and then my last 2 stitches, for some reason a little tight than normal, and into the end. So now you have a choice. You can either pick up all around the outside and do a row or two of double crochet in the UK or single US or half trebles. But I think that my blanket's quite large, so I'm going to end off my white. Don't bother about changing the colour, just going to end off my white, and I'm going to take my colour. I've got to get the white out of the way. Oh, went a bit too far. So just move this out of the way because I don't want to tangle my yarns up. And I'm going to use this really lovely DK Robin Paintbox. And I'm just going to see if I can see a colour on there for you. I think it's just a dye and a shade, and the shade is 233. It's part of a little yarn haul I picked up in a shop called Dunelm in the UK. I did a little yarn haul video, so you might have seen it. And I'm just going to pull some out, and I'm going to attach it. I'm going to attach it to this end because I don't like to have too many ends at the same place. So here's my corner, and I'm just going to insert my hook and pull it through. And my first stitch, I'm just going to do a chain using my tail and my working end, and I'm just going to work over this. And what I find really effective is to just do half trebles. Remember, that's half double in the US. I'm just going to pull that tight, and I'm going to work over this tail. So there's one, and this is being the corner, there will be 3. Always do 3 in the corner, and then 1 in each stitch along. And I'm just going to work over the tail. Didn't really want to be worked over. I think it's because my blanket's quite large, it's sort of folding in on itself. So yeah, just go in one stitch in each along. I just think it kind of works out because of the rainbow colours. Quite like the effect. I did this once before. I made a very bright neon rainbow blanket, and I edged it in sort of bright neon colours in this way, and it was really, really effective. I didn't need to go around, just this one row was enough. I'm not going to go over that part because I'm going to use that bit to sew back on itself. So otherwise they do tend to pop out if you just go over them. So to go back on themselves is a little bit more security. So that's what I'm going to do all the way around, and that's going to be my border. If you wanted to, you could do like a little picot edge afterwards. I'll see what it looks like to see whether I want to do that. So you're just going to go in every single stitch along this edge, which is nice and easy because we've got a row of stitches to go by. But when we get around the length of the blanket, we're just going to have to judge the distance and do them in the, you know, in where we can, because that's our edge, which was just our double crochet and our treble crochet along the outer edges. So we'll get to that, and we'll just have to muddle through with that and pick them up where we can. But I like that. I think that looks kind of cute. So I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to catch up with you at the corner and show you what to do along the other edge. Okay, so I'm at the end, so I'm just going to do 3 in the corner. I'm going to go over that tail that I created. Now I forgot to mention at the beginning, I showed you my yarn colours, and they were 50-gram balls, and I used one 50-gram ball of each, and there was some left over. So now we're going to go down this outer edge, and I'm just going to pick up where I can and make sure my spacing is right, and go over that tail at the same time. So I've got 3 in the corner, and I'm just going to go in and pick them up, try and keep them the same depth, if you know what I mean, so that they're not going into anything like a hole that's deeper, and just go along that edge. So that's what it looks like, and that's how my border will look, because I'm going to do 3 in each corner, and then when I get back to the start I'm just going to slip stitch into this first one and bury my tail. So it's as simple as that. Now I like this border as it is, but if you wanted to, you could just pick up the white and do a double crochet, which is a UK term, so it's a single in the US all the way around, or you could do a little crab stitch. If I do a crab stitch, which is a backwards, you're working backwards with a double crochet UK or single US, and you do kind of back on yourself so it makes a loop, I always do a row of double crochet or single US first, the right way, because otherwise it tends to look a little bitty. So you can either do that crab stitch or you can make a little picot. Now I know it's not the right place, but I will show you how to do a picot. This is how I do it. You do 3 chain and you go into the bottom chain, insert, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you've got 2, yarn over, pull through both of them and just secure it with a slip stitch. And that's how I make a picot. So afterwards you just go all the way around, don't worry about the corners, you just go in every other stitch. So you do your picot there and you do your little picot, and then you would secure it into the next one, so you kind of miss one each time. So if you wanted to go round with a row of picots you could, but I'm just going to keep this as a row of half trebles because I think I like it that way. I may change my mind when I get to the end. But that's basically the blanket. So I'm going to finish this video here because you don't really need to see me go all the way around and do a slip stitch in the end, because everybody knows how to do that, don't they? And you've seen the corners. You just do 3 in the corners and you pick it up as you go around, keeping it nice and even in each stitch. And I'm working over my tail, but you see what I mean before. This is with all of my tails weaved in, and I've tried to get them in this corner, and if you go over too much it becomes quite chunky and fat, so that's why I try and leave a nice long tail so I can go through and take it through to another one as well, otherwise it just makes this last one a little too bulky. But that's it. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell and you'll be informed when there are new videos. I hope you like this one. If you do, please give it a like and a share and maybe a comment. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.